Hey, what's up, everybody? We have a new YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe right now. Leave a comment on the video. Share it with your friends. It's also a podcast, 3 and Out, wherever you listen with me, John Middlekauff, Apple, Spotify. We have you covered, as well as thevolume.com. We have merch. Check out. I got 3 and Out hats right now. Thevolume.com. Search the podcast. Buy some merch. Well, let's just start, I guess, with the NFC Championship game then. One reason, like one prop I hammered, I'm a big prop guy now, one weekend. It's like, this is kind of fun. I took Deebo's over rushing yards. It was like almost 5-1 at 40 yards. I'm like, I don't think people quite realize once the playoffs start, he'll become their number 2 running back. Yeah. And it was clear some of the plays they were running in that game were runs to Deebo, and it really threw Kyle off. And, you know, he had a weird game. There's no way around it. I mean, his quarterback could barely grip the ball, and he kept throwing the ball instead of just hammering McCaffrey. But regardless, this game, you know, you've been saying this forever, how terrible the DBs are. The record, the numbers speak for themselves. Sutton, like, before we dive into the spread and just the overall picture, like Brandon Ayuk in this game, even if Deebo, let's say, can't go, how do they cover that guy?
Yeah, the only thing I'd worry about is because, like, last week I had some Godwin props that I lost. So the Lions just decided, all right, we're going to take a corner and then
keep the safety,
and we have the safety over top every play, and then they just sat 1-on-1 with Sutton and Evans, which obviously was a disaster. But that becomes a lot easier to do. So I
think pick the right guy.
Yeah, I think, though, even if Samuel plays, it actually might help Ayuk, because you really can't keep the safety over top, and they have no one who can cover him. So in an odd way, even though Samuel being in there might actually help him, but yeah, Detroit doesn't have anyone who can cover him. And yeah, I mean, regardless of who's in, Purdy should still be able to throw all over the secondary.
No rain right now, so
yeah, no rain. You have 2 quarterbacks who just don't want any weather, and the forecast looks clear. So I make the 49ers a little over 7-point favorites. But Deebo's not, he's still a wide receiver, but running back, like you said, he'll get like 10 to 15% of carries, and without him, like, it's just McCaffrey. So he's important in many different ways. He's worth a non-zero amount to the spread. Not many non-quarterbacks are, maybe like between a half and a point. So without knowing if he's going to be out there, I don't have any bet on the side. I will say that where I think that the key to this game, because I think the 49ers, regardless, will move the ball, be able to do a lot easier with Deebo in there, but they're going to be able to move the ball in this Detroit defense. I think the key to the game is can Gibbs get going in the run game? Specifically, you have to really run outside against San Francisco. Outside zone, you can't really run up the middle against them. Can he get going? Because if he can't, so if he can, you obviously, make it more manageable 3rd downs. But if he can't get going, because he's the kind of back that, you kind of need to have some success running against San Francisco. If he can't, and you have Goff in known passing situations, and you're not going to have weather here, but Goff, when you can get him under pressure, can just turn into a complete, especially up the middle, can turn into a complete pumpkin for long stretches and never come out of it. It may take him 2 quarters to come out of it. And the 49ers now have their full arsenal along the defensive line. Didn't get sacks last week. They were playing a mobile Jordan Love, but they got pressure without blitzing on 42% of Love's dropbacks. He did a good job of evading pressure at times. But if you look at the numbers with everyone, with Armstead, with Young, when they're all on the field, sample size isn't huge, but their pressure rate almost doubles. Yeah, Hargrave, pressure almost doubles. So, and with all of them in, you can't really double anybody. So, and the Lions don't have a blocking tight end now. So, like, did Brock Wright got hurt? You have Laporta, who you'd want out there, but you'd also want someone to chip on Bosa. So, like, you have Zach.
You don't like Ertz one-on-one versus Nick Bosa?
Yeah. So, like, I don't know that's going to be interesting to see what they do with Laporta. But one of the biggest injuries of this weekend is Jonah Jackson, who's an unreal guard for the Lions. He's hurt, And last week, and Ragnow, their center, who's one of the toughest dudes in the NFL, he'll play, but he has a hurt ankle, a hurt knee. So he's not fully healthy. But last week, their backup guard, who was horrendous, Awasika, came in. He allowed 7 pressures on 28 pass blocking snaps. That is horrendous. And in comparison, Jackson had 18 pass blocking snaps, didn't allow any. So if they're able to generate pressure up the middle, specifically against Goff, who's a statue and not mobile, then the Lions offense will fall apart. So, and that would happen on any known passing down. So if Gibbs can't get going, I think it could be tough sledding for the Lions offense. If he can, with play action, with the defensive lineman now more focused on stopping the run, there will be some opportunities. Lions have a lot of talent on the outside for them to move the ball, but I think that's the key. I did play. The only thing I played in this game from a prop perspective, I played more props in the Ravens-Chiefs game. I played it. You can find this at DraftKings. Armstead over 0.25 sacks at plus 145. I just bet it. It's probably come down a little bit, but it's still probably.
He looked good last week. Now he's had 3 months off, but
fresh. He would have hit this in 5 of 10 games this year, and you only need a half sack to go over 0.25. 6 of 10 postseason games, he would have hit this. He has 7 total sacks and 7 total sacks in 10 playoff games. And it's most likely the Lions will be playing from behind. So it's a passing game script. They're going to be throwing more. And he just has a favorable matchup here with the backup guard, a hurt center. And I think that what's going to happen is if you don't have a blocking tight end, is your defensive ends are going to be able to get around, force Goff up in the pocket. And that's when he just will just like fall into defenders, interior defensive linemen's hands. So I like Armstead to get over 0.25 sacks. I think he can have 1 or 2 here. I think he had a game with 2 or 3 in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So yeah, he looked good. He's fresh and he's a good matchup.
And Goff can't get away. He's super long.
Can't get away at all.
That.
Yeah.
The one thing, the 49ers run defense relative to what it's been in the past years clearly has been a little off lately. Now, part of that was Armstead had missed a lot of time. Hargrave is not a run stuffer, and their 2 linebackers, especially Fred, while have elite speed and great open field tacklers, can't get caught up on, blockers. But if the center can't move as well and they're playing backup guards, it's not like Penei Sewell and Decker can block everyone, right? So that's an area that, because in my mind, I was like, well, I think they'd be able to run on them a little bit, but that's a big swing if you got backup offensive linemen. Now, the one thing is, usually the way the game's going to start. The Lions, to me, are taking the ball first if they get the coin toss, and the 49ers always defer. And you saw it last week with the Packers. Now, they kicked a field goal, but they drove right down the field. So and it's a little deflating if you drive right down the field and get a field goal. Like, that was a huge reason why the 49ers won, right? I mean, a couple drives, it was 4-point swings in the red zone. So to me, it's like if their run defense is better, their pass rush, though, has not been as dominant as it has been in years past. And part of that is like Chase Young is just kind of a guy. But like you said, the interior, if he's healthy, Armstead's a really good player. If he's going up against a backup, and Hargrave is just really good. And Bosa just even when he doesn't get sacks, he does cause pressure. So they have eaten Goff alive. Now, Goff,
Goff can't handle interior pressure because if you can't move, you're not going to be able to handle interior pressure. And that's most of the year. He's had, the Lions' offensive line has been an overwhelming strength, and their interior with Ragnow and Jackson specifically have been so good. But, now you have Ragnow hurt, who's going to play, and then Jackson.
You factor in outdoor, because I know you've been down on him outdoor like everybody all season long, but this is like him and Purdy would have to neutralize each other in that situation.
Yeah, there's no wind here. If there was rain, it actually might help the Lions more because Purdy seems to just struggle with gripping. So
Goff's not a great rain quarterback either.
Yeah, I don't. If the Lions are playing because the Lions have an explosive offense and a bad D. So if they were playing a team that was just like, where it can help, but this game turns into a grinder. But the 49ers have a explosive offense too. Like I think it's nothing here. The only thing that would matter is if there was wind. If you got up to like 15 to 20 mile an hour winds, Goff just can't deal with it. But it looks like it's going to be like 5, 7, meaningless. Anything under 10 is meaningless. So no, I don't put any stock into them playing outdoors here.
there's just a natural overreaction, right? I mean, the Lions have won 2 games, which, I mean, the first round they easily could have lost against the Rams. Now, granted, the Rams are good. They probably could be playing in this week, and no one would have batted an eye. And last week against Tampa was a lot harder. I saw you tweeted about mid-game, like this is kind of a slugfest here, kind of boring. I mean, it felt much more like a Sunday 10 a.m. kickoff that not everyone's paying attention to. But it was the second round of the playoffs where 35 million people were watching, and they just were constantly getting shredded. So it's not like while they're winning, I think people overvalue because they've won 2 games. The Niners look like shit, and everyone thinks, and I kind of guilty of this too, like, oh, this is going to be a close game. But is this a situation every time you short the Niners, they come back just fucking guns blazing? All of a sudden, you look up and it's 17-3 in the second quarter.
Yeah, I mean that's the NFL. Like the spot here, but like from a spread perspective, especially this open at 6.5. But you're talking about buying low on the 49ers, who closed 10.5. Like I bet the -9. They closed -10.5 against the against the Packers. Now you're getting them at 7. So you're getting the 49ers cheap here. I would normally play them if I just knew more about Deebo. The thing that does make it tough though is, and this can work both ways, but the variance that Campbell's going to introduce into the game. So, and you would assume that as touchdown underdogs, that he's going to be even more aggressive if that's even possible. So he's going to go for, a bunch of 4th downs, and, you get them, then all of a sudden that, that just the swings that could be experienced in this game are massive. Like
could be the difference of a punt and a touchdown, right?
I mean, and then the 49, the Lions defense isn't any good. So the 49ers, like then, they take over at midfield. They're probably going to score. You're talking like, 10, 14 point swings in the game. So I might look to bet it live. I might look to bet the 49ers live if they get behind. And, if the Lions like come out first drive, it's like 4th and 6 at the 50. Like they're going to go for it, where a lot of coaches would punt it, especially in a conference championship game. So we'll see. I'm curious to see if Campbell maintains his aggressiveness. It's who he is. He's always done it, but light to the brightest now. This is the big stage. So some coaches will just turtle a little more. But based on everything that I've seen, there's going to be some enormous variance that Campbell introduces into the game with his 4th down decisions. 4th and goal at the 4, he's probably going to go for it, whereas Shanahan might kick the field goal. So, and again, enormous swings in this game. So if I had to bet it, I would bet the Niners at -7. But I'm probably going to look for something live. And the reason I'm not betting it is just because, Samuel's worth like a half point to a point. Lines are pretty tight this time of the year. But his injury definitely looms large in many different areas.
Well, the other thing is, both quarterback. I mean, Purdy only played 1 game. He's played 2. They haven't thrown a pick yet. Obviously, Purdy easily could have thrown a pick 6 to open up the game last week. Goff definitely is liable to make a mistake. That's something that, like, I don't feel great. Purdy's had some moments this year where if you can kind of rattle him early, he gets kind of thrown off. And it's the opposite. When he gets momentum early, he looks like fucking Drew Brees or something, So it kind of how he starts kind of carries over throughout the game. Now, as we saw last week, Purdy doesn't fold. That was something I think I saw Richard Sherman talked about. Kyle talked about. I think Jared Goff has definitely become more mentally tough now in his older age, right? He used to just quiver and fall apart. Now, he still doesn't play well, but I do think he's a little mentally tougher, where Purdy definitely has the edge there. Like he can make a mistake and then come back and just look normal again, right? If the weather's not rolling. Yep. So they can overcome an interception. If you tell me Goff's throwing just off early, I think the Lions would be in major, major trouble.
Yeah, and especially if he's forced to throw, they're going to be able to get pressure. And the 49ers have much better ball hawks, guys at linebacker that are capable of making a play where, Goff doesn't see a linebacker jumps a route, a safety jumps a route. The Lions just don't have many dudes in the secondary or as many at linebacker. So, yeah, I would think Goff, especially if he's under pressure, is much more likely because to throw a pick. Purdy's much more mobile than him too. You got to remember that. So
yeah, that helps.
One of the keys is for the Lions is their secondary is bad. And one of the only weaknesses of this San Francisco offense is just parts of their offensive line. So like, can, Hutchinson generate, a strip sack? Can he force Purdy, get his arm on a throw? They're going to have to generate pressure here because there's just not many ways that they're going to get stops. Their run D's been really good. By some metrics, it's been adjusted for opponents, been number 1 in the league. A lot of noise in that. I don't think they're the best run defense, but that's definitely their strength.
They're good, yeah.
But the 49ers will still be able to run it, but they're not going to be able to just run it up and down the field like they can against some teams. So the Lions will have, how much pressure can they get on the non-Trent Williams will be the key. But I think, to your point, Goff is much more likely to make a key mistake or two in this game.
Well, we focused on the DB, the corners with them. Obviously, Kittle has had some big playoff moments. CJ Gardner-Johnson, much more of a hitter than a cover guy. Branch, more of a hitter than a cover guy. Do you like, Kittle? I saw a 2 touchdown prop at like 4 or 5 to 1. He's a guy that definitely, from a yardage standpoint, would have shocked you if he had a bigger game. Is that a matchup you like coming into this game?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, Kittle at home too. For whatever reason, Kittle at home just goes bananas. If you look at his performances at home, he seems to always go over his yardage prop. So yeah, I don't think that there's anyone on the Lions that can cover him.
Especially if Deebo's out.
Yeah, Deebo's out.
He'd be a target.
That's who's going to get, even more work over the middle of the field. The only thing I would be concerned about is if they are able to generate pressure early, and then you got to use them more as a blocker. That would be my, because people forget when they compare all the tight ends in the NFL how good of a blocker Kittle is. So that would be my only concern. But yeah, if Deebo is out, I think it actually could hurt Ayuk, even though that's counterintuitive to, when you're just thinking about it on the surface, but because they'll rotate a safety over to him and then they'll take their chances, guarding Juwan Johnson with single coverage. But Kittle would be the one I think that would benefit the most from if Deebo is out. So if Deebo's out, I would certainly look to target Kittle in the prop market.
You think obviously if the Lions were to win this game, they would be an underdog to either AFC team? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, they would get a bump for sure for beating the Niners on the road at the line. And we'll talk about this game next. Obviously, if the Ravens win, I mean, depending if they blow off the Chiefs, they'll get bumped again. The Chiefs win, they'll get bumped. So, but I think the Lions would get the biggest bump because they're the biggest underdog. But they would be, probably 4.5, 5-point underdogs to Baltimore, and like a field goal underdog to the Chiefs. And then if the Niners win,
do we just forget about the Packer game if they win this game in controlling fashion?
Yeah. Especially
because it's in a dome, it's not a weather game coming up in the
especially if there's no concerns about Samuel either. And for the Super Bowl, I mean, there's 2 more weeks, especially if he plays. But yeah, if the Ravens look dominant again, though, they
have to be favored, right?
Yeah, I think they're going to be like a 1-point favorite now. If the Chiefs win and beat the Ravens, they're going to get a ton of credit for that. They'll get more credit than the Niners winning, but people will forget about the Packers game. I think the Niners would be 3-point favorites over the Chiefs. You might get just a ton of people being like, Mahomes is a dog again, and we just went through this, and then it might go to like 2.5. But Niners would be like 2.5 to 3-point favorites, maybe 1-point dog against the Ravens.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I mean, I got burned by the Niners last week, but so my gut says that's crazy to do it. But I'm gonna short the overreaction and just go with the way that you talk about the NFL, which constantly works, and take the Niners in this spot. A lot of respect for the Lions, though. If they lose, they can fucking lose by 20. Incredible season. I mean, they haven't been here in 30 plus years, and they got a bright young squad.